So asking questions, I think, is a mistake, and specifically when people are pressed for time. I see too many leaders still enjoying also giving answers. This also links to the leader as the knower, so the person who knows the answers, and a bit more humble leadership where you say, I don't have all the answers, like on hybrid working, but directionally, as sort of with a team have an idea where we want to go to. Let's go there together.
At Heart Talk HR, we bring you fresh ideas and inspiring content from around the world of work. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining in again. And it's my particular pleasure to introduce our next session. It's a rare opportunity where Gerard Panning, the CHRO of ABN Amro Bank, we shall be having a conversation, a chat about ABN Amro Bank's new people agenda, personal banking in a digital age. A couple of words about Gerard Panning, the CHRO of ABN Amro Bank. Formerly, he was a CHRO of Royal Dutch Shell upstream and downstream. Gerard specialized in working with global, highly complex businesses to navigate the full range of external trends and disruptors and transform them into business opportunities. Early 2018, Gerard has been elected to the Board of Sustainable Energy for All, a Vienna-based global NGO, allowing him to further broaden his expertise in the provision of sustainable energy solutions. Early this year, Gerard has been elected to the board of Alliander, a Netherlands-based energy network company with over 7,000 employees. Gerard holds a master's degree in law from Leiden University, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Gerard on our virtual stage. Gerard, thank you so much for being here. It's such a delight and privilege. It's been a while we've met, so it's always a great opportunity to see you again, as I know how passionate you are about the profession, how passionate you are about leadership and people. So thank you so much for making time for us and making time for our audience. Yep. In the past 1.5 days while we were running this conference, there has been a lot of talks and discussions about the topic of hybrid work. It's such a challenge for organizations. What are the structures, processes, skills, and leadership? So let's start with hybrid work. In your view, hybrid work at ABN Amro, how do you see it from through these 4 angles: structures, processes, skills, and of course, leadership?
Yeah, thank you very much, and also thanks for the invite. I'm really happy to be here today. I hope the sound quality is okay.
It's perfect. Yes, we hear you well.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about structure. There's quite a lot of practical things you have to organize around hybrid working, and I assume that most people have done that. We've introduced basically a booking reservation for office space systems, which also would allow for parking places and everything that comes with that. And that gives you the opportunity to literally plan when it comes to large groupings of people. We have about 10,000 people in the Netherlands, to make sure that supply and demand for office space is managed, and they have a level of control over when they work at the office and for what time slot. So I think that is important, because this is also a meeting about learnings. It sounds easy. It was not easy. It takes a bit of time. Then there are some glitches, like with every software that you try at first, and still you're still shooting at a moving target. So I want to be open about that. Yeah. I don't want to leave the impression that hybrid working is a walk in the park and we've got it all sorted out. We're quite clear when it comes to structure, systems, and tools, but there's still a lot to do. And there's an interplay between the points that you made with leadership, for example, and the role of leadership to actually use the facilities, the structure, in a way that actually supports hybrid working. So I think that's one. I mean, the second thing, we have been really clear as much as possible, and we built quite a lot of practical education around the framing of work for departments. And literally there are toolkits that people can grab from the intranet to allow them structuring, for example, what work you do in the office and what work do you do at home, and what you do in any other location, for example, when you visit a customer or client. in all that, the last point you made, leadership plays actually a very important role. And it's very simple. Leaders that have been good at engaging people typically do well during COVID times. Leaders who already struggled with engaging people and connect people's hearts and minds are struggling even more at times of COVID. And for me, in that respect, this has been an interesting time also, almost like a live assessment center to assess leaders' capability to lead a community of people through what has been quite a difficult set of changes and will be quite a lot of changes coming forward. So I'm an optimist by nature. This is a free assessment center. Let's use it for that purpose. And let's make sure that leaders who are good at engaging people will be the winners out of this, because that will be an important skill going forward.
And it's a big pressure on leadership. I mean, obviously, when people were still in lockdown in the past 18 months, everybody worked longer, everybody worked harder, at least, and it's been quite challenging, wearing down on people. Zoom fatigue is now a big thing.
Yeah.
It became a term which we have not heard before. Well-being. What do you do in regards to leadership to ensure that your leaders are actually not burnt out and they remain? They cannot really give. They cannot be good leaders if they are not taking care of their own well-being in the first place.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
Yes, it's been quite loaded questions.
First of all, I for those people who know me a bit, I fundamentally believe in leadership is leading by example. Show where you struggle yourself. So very simple things I've started doing from the first day. I had to be working from home. Is take a walk frequently, put a headset on, show people, put your camera on or not, but at least show people that you're doing those things, and legitimizing is a big word, but actually creating an atmosphere where it's very okay for other people to do the same thing. So I think that is one. The second thing is, which was always important, but now even more important, that you allow for time in between meetings. And again, if I don't do it, what sort of an example you give to others? So if you literally run and race from one meeting to another, that's really unhelpful. And also when it comes to, and that's then the third thing, checking in, even in a one-on-one, when you talk to people, even if it's just half an hour, allow 5, sometimes 10 minutes for a real check-in. So if somebody looks a bit white around the nose, or just plainly tired, he or she is not as sort of energetic as people you used to be, allow for that time to reflect on things that you might have otherwise catched in the office, or a walk, or the coffee machine, or whatever. And the last thing that I've been doing, and I'm lucky that I've seen other people do it as well, some conversations are just fundamentally not working in a Teams environment. So anything that has a high level of emotion to it, for example. There's a great movie that came out 20 years ago, Up in the Air it's called, where a lot of people were fired through a sort of team environment.
George
like
Clooney
this.
was the
Clooney, yes. And that's, of course, quite a radical example. But in my experience, anything that has a strong emotional component, where when somebody's just not in the right job, could be one of that, or there's a performance issue, or you want to make a selection of individual A or individual B for a big job. I've just started what I call beach walks. I live close to the beach, but it can also be a forest, so anywhere else. Take walks with people to have those talks. So back to Plato, and this amazing thing that happens when you have a conversation where you walk side by side. You don't have to look at each other. A bit of silence is okay, and during those walks address the more difficult or deeper issues, or anything that has an emotional connotation. These are really simple, practical things that can help. Having said all that, still a lot of people struggle with spending most of the day behind the screen in a room. And I've seen quite a lot of people in the office again. There's a sense of relief and almost like a renewed energy around literally being together. And I do believe that it took a long time, 1.5 years, but now I think we will find the right balance, and then we're back to hybrid working, between that fantastic thing that happens when human beings are together. And stopping this stupid thing of sitting in a traffic jam for hours a day for doing stuff that you could also do from home. So my hope is, and I share that we will find the right balance now, but that will require leadership. And then we're back to the earlier question. Yeah.
Do you see leadership has changed in the past 18 months? What sort of leadership qualities or competencies have been more kind of increased, kind of became under a magnifying glass? How has leadership changed in the past 18 months?
Yeah. I think leaders who have not specified in an emotive and clear language why they're actually there and what the reason is for being in a department. And it doesn't need to be a business. It's a bit simpler if you have a business or a product, a set of services. You set out in the market, you have a competitive position, you try to differentiate yourself. But also for finance, HR, legal, what is ultimately your purpose? Well, in a language that is emotive and simple, what is it that you try to achieve together? Leaders who do that better, I sometimes call that define your Mount Kilimanjaro, that hill that we all want to climb. This is where we are today. This is where we're going to go to. The better you do that, the easier it is for people to find their own way, literally, towards that common objective. Leaders who do that well are winners in the hybrid world. Leaders who believe, because there's also an equation of trust is good, but control is better, versus control is good, but trust is better. And specifically leaders who believe in the latter bit, and not surprising, one of those. Also, as a hard-nosed business leader, which I'm always, and the competitive landscape in banking is not for the faint-hearted.
Right.
But there's so much more you can achieve to people by being clear about the set of objectives, and then give people space and room to maneuver in order to achieve those. And these, for me, are very important behaviors. There's a lot of other things. Like doing these check-ins so that you build social fabric with the people, that you actually know what makes people tick. This is a more fundamental thing about leadership. I sometimes find it amazing how little leaders know about what the fundamental drivers are for the people that are working for them. I believe that was always a sin, just plainly stupid. But in a time of COVID, knowing your people to that extent is even so much more important, and also with hybrid working, because you can trust them so much better if you know what motivates them and drives them, and then you can frame the work in a way that it's actually very attractive for the individual to do the work.
So you are a believer of tough love, as I can hear from your words.
Yeah, then I think this is also about an open fire chat.
Sure.
Some of the culture in the bank, the people are kind to each other typically, and that's fine. That's actually nicer than when people are not kind to each other.
Yes.
but you can be kind to people and tough on assessing what they're doing, and I don't believe that's a contradiction. So you can say, I really like you as a person, but the piece of work that you delivered here for this and that reason is just not good enough, and let's help each other to get a better outcome next time. I don't believe. And if you're not honest about that, I don't really believe that you have the trust relationship I was talking about earlier. And I also believe that if you really care for somebody, you're also open about what they're good about. Because if you're not, someday someone will make a tougher decision on that person. And then you've basically missed your duty as a leader to give honest feedback. Yeah.
Candor is absolutely essential in a conversation. So
yeah.
Fully agree. You've mentioned the importance of knowing people. So not knowing your people is one of the potential mistakes that leaders can make, especially if it's magnified in hybrid work. Can you just give us some example? What sort of leadership errors would you consider which are critical to avoid?
No, I'm happy to do that. What I see people do, and well, perfect. So I do it occasionally when I'm under too much pressure, is to immediately dive in the subject matter, which is all the more easy with teams, because you got an agenda, you're pressed for time, it's all very nicely set up and tuned, and you just miss out on that. So that check-in for me is not a luxury or nice to have. To level with the person you're talking to is a mistake quite often made. The second thing is giving people as a leader the answer rather than asking the question. I see that all the time. And quite frankly, one of the ways to shorten the distance with people, even if they're on a call, and I had to do that quite often in my former job because there were so many time zones I had to cover, is ask questions, even if you think you know the answer, and then allow yourself to be surprised. But far more importantly, asking questions means that the person you're talking to is going to think the way you think about a topic. So if you want to become customer-centric in the way you do your work, you want to ask questions like, how will this pan out for your customer? How this work that we're doing right now, this project we're executing, how will customers ultimately experience the outcome of this? Or if you have a theme like simplification and you get this very complex process in front of your nose, I can, of course, go ballistic and explain all the areas where it is really complex and not in the spirit of simplification. Or I could ask the question, could we have done this more simple? And where are the opportunities to further simplify, for example? So asking questions, I think, is a mistake. And specifically when people are pressed for time, I see too many leaders still enjoying also giving answers. This also links to the leader as the knower, so the person who knows the answers. And a bit more humble leadership where you say, I don't have all the answers, like on hybrid working. But directionally, as sort of with a team have an idea where we want to go to. Let's go there together. And that brings me then to my last point of leadership. Course adjust. And don't spend an awful lot of time when you have a problem with many variables. And hybrid working is one of those. A huge amount of variables. We don't know how they will pan out. Start with something. See how it goes. Course correct. Stop things that don't work. Emphasize stuff that actually works. And in that respect, show also from a leadership perspective that you're not glued to your own beliefs or ideas, but that you're prepared to course correct as you proceed. So these for me, and then spend time, social time together, white space, whatever you want to call it. So if you don't do that enough, you will not have the social fabric that you need in order to resolve conflicts when they arise. I really believe that you should build relationships before you need them. Not only in work life, by the way, but that's another conversation. Yeah.
Indeed. No, brilliant. Absolutely. As Marshall Goldson's put in, what got you here won't get you there, is that we just want to win too much. Just want to win too much. And that's somehow stand in the way of leadership efficiency. Let's move on to a little bit, talk about ABN Amro and your organization. Obviously, is very customer centric, but customer centricity and customer experience cannot be achieved without superior employee experience, especially when the banking industry is transforming to digital banking. So what is it that you do? How do you harness technology? How do you harness artificial intelligence so that you create superior employee experience that can be or will be translated or is translated to superior customer experience?
Firstly, again, honestly, it lasts always very long. And some of you hopefully are a customer of the bank or will become one, perhaps even after this talk today. We're not perfect, definitely not. So there's still a lot to learn. But the tagline that I really like, and I've been part of that, is personal. We're after personal banking in the digital age. And the personal thing is be there, which is also important for my own function, by the way. It's important for HR. There's a lot you can digitize. But there are certain things where you actually want and need that personal reaction and relationship, as I just mentioned. Could be that beach walk or whatever. So the first thing you do is to make sure that inside your company, you use things like hybrid working and the digital skills that are required to build effective relationship and to manage relationships over time. I do believe that that's a perfect teaching school for doing the same with your customer base. And that's, I think the bank made huge strides over the last 1.5 years, and I'm an optimist by nature, where some of those experiences were translated in improving the digital banking experience. So I think, and whatever in your enterprise, you can find linkages to the things you want to do for your customers and things that you want to practice with your own people. When it becomes a Venn diagram with very strong interlinkage and that shiny spot in the middle where the two circles coincide, that for me is always gold dust. These are good things to explore. That also goes for simplification. like most banks, there's a lot of external processes, systems, and tools and things that you have to deal with. And if you're not careful, you make it really complicated for people to do the right thing. And I do believe that we sometimes also make it complicated for our customers to actually engage. Take what's in the banking world called a new client take-on. There's all kind of things that we have to check also, and not the least that, for example, the person is the person that claims to be the person in the application, then the track record and history, etc. Again, with those things, it's really important that you do that in a way that the customer actually understands the how, what, and why of what you do, and then make it as simple and easy as possible. And then the last thing, perhaps, what we've learned to do when it comes to digital is offshoring and outsourcing is not per se the solution. It is for some things. But like in my former employer, we learned the hard way that if you have something that doesn't work, a process end-to-end that has issues, asking a third party to do it on your behalf is not a recipe for success. So what you see, and that there's big label words like strategic workforce management for that, where we are trying to get a lot sharper about who does the work, who's the best party to do the work, how do you make sure that over time that party is still qualified to do that work, and how can digital way of working play into that. And there's no area where this comes out more than when you look at customer support and customer support centers, where we started with the first bot. We now have a whole layer provided through digital interface with customers, and that is actually very exciting because you're at the front end, if you do it well, of artificial intelligence, digital, and I think the learning there is be excited about the opportunity, but never lose sight of the fact that it is rarely as good as it is presented by those parties that want to sell you propositions in this space. And be also really clear about where you want to have the human interventions with customers. So these are just a few examples where I think we're doing the right things, but we're still learning. And I'm personally excited about the coming years, how digital propositions, including voice recognition and enhanced versions of dealing with basic conversations with customers electronically, fully automated, how that will interface in a smooth way with human interfaces, and how can you make that run in a way that it feels like a very good proposition from a customer point of view. That's we're not there yet, but I'm really excited that we're working on it.
Do you work with your customer experience team? I mean, customer experience and one-on-one marketing has been way before we started talking about individualization and employee experience in HR. How do you work with your CX team, and how do you learn from them, adapt some of the ideas on employee experience?
Yeah, first of all, coming back to the two Venn diagrams, we use the same measures in many cases. So you look at net promoter scores from a customer point of view, and you look also at employee net promoter scores. And also in my former company, but also in the one where I'm right now, there's a huge investment in data and data analytics. And to put it really simple, which is not a surprise to any of the people on the call, I think, but it is good that we've acknowledged it and that we can prove it and that we can track it, is that happy employees create happy customers.
But ABN Amro was early pioneer of people analytics, workforce analytics, it used to call. So your bank has actually early on jumped on
Correct.
this bandwagon. Really,
and
really.
The same was true for Shell, where I worked a long time. And you can decode the word happy. You can be really very specific about what parts of employee engagement help your proposition. So I think that is definitely an area where we work together. Another area where there's very close collaboration between marketing and HR is, of course, in a heating up market, and when it comes to skills and capabilities, is the whole branding of the proposition that you offer to the market when it comes to the work that you provide. And again, I'm not saying that we do it perfect, but we typically, when we want a certain set of skills and capabilities, we've been able to attract those skills and capabilities from the market, working very closely together with marketing expertise. But also other fields are important there, by the way. Like if you have a text where you attract people or a job description, how diverse are the words used? Do we really tailor to the needs of specific audiences that you want to capture? All that sort of stuff. It can always be improved, but we're far more scientific, deliberate, and precise about those things than just 5 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I'm glad to hear. In fact, the presentation after this session will be all exactly about the CMO, CHRO, CIO relationships. Yeah. So we're really looking forward to a nice pleasure. I'm conscious of the time. It's amazing how quickly time flies. And a really important question to you is about, I know ABN Amro is going through a major transformation, and ABN Amro has a new HR agenda. Can you just tell us about that? Why was it Why was it important to start this transformation, and where are you on this journey?
Yeah. It's always dangerous when you come new to a job as a CHRO and immediately come up with a new people strategy. And I've been very conscious internally and externally to talk about evolution rather than revolution. And there were 3 reasons why we put together the people strategy. One was I fundamentally believe that you always stand on the shoulders of the people that came before you. And not paying respect to that is just stupid, because there was a lot of good stuff. The second reason why we introduced the people strategy, so one was to recognize that. The second was to link it closer to the business strategy. Around the same time that we launched the people strategy, not by accident, we launched the ABN Amro strategy. One of the parts we already talked about, which is the personal bank in the digital age. But it's also to give hands and feet to the sustainability drive. How do you build a business model around that? Banking for better for generations to come. And so what the people strategy did, and I assume that everybody on the call has done something similar, is make really clear connects. What does customer centricity mean for the people agenda? What does it mean for talent? What does it mean for leadership? What does it mean for the way you recognize people? And we picked up subjects. If you're moving, and I think that's perhaps the last big area, because I realized the time. And one of the really strong linkages we made between the strategy and the people strategy is around the uncertainty about what skills you will exactly need in the years to come. And your traditional education model, or hire people for a certain skill set and just see how it will go, is just not good enough anymore. Generally speaking, when you have a huge amount of variables, it is better to build optionality. So up and reskilling became a very important priority, is now one of the biggest priority, which basically brings circularity into the whole notion of talent. Because the halftime of the relevance of what you learned at university is rapidly reduced, or any other schooling systems you went through. And so you see our strategy of wanting to be relevant for our customers in a world where we don't know exactly how it will evolve. That includes the role of banking. The best way to do that is to make sure that you can constantly tune your skills and your capability to develop at whatever scenario the market throws at you, a competitive, meaningful differentiator in the skills and capabilities that you bring to the table. And you know what? That's also fun, because it's easier said than done, but once you create momentum around something like that, in itself, up and reskilling, if you do it really well, can become a competitive differentiator at a very competitive cost. So early days, but I'm very excited about how those things come together. And if that was then needed on the back of a people strategy, it was worth writing one.
Last question, literally have 1 minute. HR leaders want to focus on next 18 months, priorities, skills, competencies. What would you advise them?
No, I think, as I said, I think for many companies, you're operating in an uncertain world, a lot of quick developments, geopolitical, most exciting time I've ever seen, and how digital and people interface exactly play out, not 100% sure. So up and reskilling would definitely be high, but before that would come leaders that can inspire. I don't think there's any other, and do you have them? And for anybody on the call who's worked for somebody who's not inspiring, you know the difference. And let's assume that's relevant today, will be relevant 5 years from now. And there's so much that falls in the right place when you got that right. If you have the right leader, performance management falls in the right place. If you have the right leader, the succession planning and talent falls in the right place. If you have the right leader, you can actually make sure that if you have an objective like customer centricity, it's not just a buzzword, but will actually happen. So that would be very high priority. And hybrid working, obviously, we're just at the start of it. Stay curious. I also say that to myself in the mirror. Keep asking questions. And then together, I think we'll find the path, but it will be a rocky ride. I'm absolutely convinced of that.
Brilliant. Gerard, thank you very, very much for your time. We finished for today. I really look forward to the next opportunity.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.